Hi, everybody. Back again this week, and I'm very luckily joined by Vince Morales. Vince, first of all, man, I want to ask you, how you feeling? Because I know you obviously scheduled to face Nathaniel Wood at UFC London. Unfortunately, come down with a sickness, which happens to everyone. It does. How are you feeling? How's the body feeling now? Week and a bit removed from UFC London.
For the most part, like pretty good. My weight still hasn't came back. I was like just starting the weight cut when I got hit with the flu. I'm guessing is what it was, but I had a fever, body aches, dying of sweat. It was ridiculous. Yeah, my weight hasn't came back yet, but for the most part, I think I've got a little bit of a lingering cough and stuff. But I'm at least I can train right now without dying. So uh,
Yeah,
as good as I can be with the circumstances.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
100%.
So, speaking on the fight with Nathaniel, you've had the opportunity to be the far more active fighter, particularly over the last year and a half to 2 years. With Nathaniel's last fight prior to the previous weekend being October of 2020, do you think your level of activity compared to his will play a big factor in your eventual fight, considering that you've been able to have far more fights in the last 2 years?
I know I usually don't weigh too much on the activity in there because for the most part we're all on the outside training and trying to grow. And him coming off loss, I was kind of expecting a better version of him. I was assuming he was going to be pushing forward a little bit more versus trying to work the outside, which I think he's kind of leading that as the leading cause for the way his fight with Casey Kenny went. So I was expecting a better version. The only thing that may have been a little bit of edge is I was, like you're saying, less removed from actually being in the octagon. But I don't know. I try not to weigh too heavy on that, like it's a real edge. I mean, after the fact, if it became an edge, great. I wasn't banking on it though.
Mm. Vince, kind of aside from the fight itself, there didn't seem to be any bad feelings towards Nathaniel or vice versa. I did see in an Instagram post from him that he said, and I quote, "All I can say is that when the fight gets rescheduled, he's getting it for making me miss last night's event." I think it's fair to say that you've never been a fighter to turn down fights, never shy away from fights. It's pretty proven in your career. Your career speaks for itself, man. What do you make of his comment, or are you really remaining just focused on the fight itself?
Um, at first, I was initially a little bit worked up because when the doctors were talking to me about pulling me from the card, I had immediately sent him a message and explained to him the kind of situation and how I was feeling getting off the plane and stuff. And it looks like the doctors aren't even going to let me even attempt the weight cut. And he was saying, well, what if we do a catch weight? I was like, that'd be great for me, but they're still going to pull me because of the flu, the fever, whatever it was. But I was like, I'm sorry, dude. Like I came here ready to fight. And I'm think of myself as fairly upfront and honest with those things. So I thought he appreciated that because he was like, well, I hope you get better soon. Shit happens, yada yada. And then for him to go around and say that, I was like, okay, he's just talking to the media, trying to build it up. I was like, cool, maybe he's looking for trying to build some hype around the rebooking. And then he had went on to tweet something else that we got into it a little bit on Twitter for. And I took that one a little bit personal, but it's been a few days. I'm a little more calm now. But I'm just not a fan of those like weaselly type actions.
Yeah, for sure. Vince, focusing back on your fight career itself, something that is evident from all your fights is your evolution in constantly refining and expanding your skill set. Is your mindset on consistent evolution in MMA a holdover from your days in wrestling or something that you've really invested in when you began your MMA journey?
I think that carries on back from wrestling in high school, just because I didn't start out with the best. I wasn't very good. As a freshman, I had lost every one of my matches, and for whatever reason, I decided to come back the next year, and I think most people wouldn't. And I was like, I got to figure it out. It's not in me to not battle it out, especially when I was losing on technique. I wasn't losing on effort because I was going out there and I felt like I was trying my hardest. I was just never getting the result. So I just had to figure out how to win. And for because I started kind of late, where I was lacking in overall skill set, the heart to win was there. And I think that carried me through quite a bit, but definitely you get to a certain point where you can't only win on toughness and heart and all that. You've got to develop those skills. So even as a pro fighter, I wasn't even training jiu-jitsu until I lost a fight to jiu-jitsu. I won all my amateur fights and then I think my third or fourth fight, I got armbarred, and I was like, okay, cool. I guess I do got to figure out some jiu-jitsu. So I started training that. Unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way, but that's what it is. It's all about the growth and evolution that we can manifest within ourselves to be able to capture the victory in these big moments.
Vince, in a sport like wrestling, where you could argue it's one of the hardest sports in the world, both physically and mentally, especially the competitive side of it, how difficult was it to keep that internal self-belief, particularly where in wrestling you're competing every other weekend, not just once or twice per year?
That was very, very interesting. I think I learned a lot about myself wrestling. I don't think I would definitely not be the person I am today without wrestling. I think everybody should wrestle at one point, just because, like you were saying, it is one of the hardest things I think people can do. It teaches you a lot about yourself, whether you want to learn it or not. You're gonna learn. So yeah, for me, I think that carried on. I'm sorry. What was the last part of the question? I went off on a tangent and got away from it.
No, you're right. Just how did you manage to keep that self-belief?
The self-belief. I just I'm fairly competitive. I'm not kind of a fan of losing, and I think I've always been able to figure out whatever I want to do. I can do it. I just got to commit and actually do it. And you realize where you're lacking in some commitment areas, and if you want to fix it, you're gonna. So that was just kind of what I did. I did a lot of visualization and just trying to kind of, even when the wrestling season was closed or not running, I was still mentally going through all my practices and anything I could do to get better. Because man, 0-12 as a freshman is really hard for the little skinny guy on the mat. It's yeah, I had to really start from scratch in terms of ego building.
Yep, for sure. So you kind of touched on it there, that you early on in your wrestling career, it wasn't going well for you. And then you actually went on to become a state champion. Was that flip of the switch in your wrestling career something that just sort of happened one day, or was it more of a process gained from hours and hours of minor technical and mental improvements each time you put on your wrestling shoes?
I think I did most of my growing outside of the wrestling season, honestly. Just because I was too broke to afford wrestling camps or anything like that, so I couldn't go do what all the better wrestlers on the team were doing. But what I could do is mentally just go through things, and I was always working out, always just trying to get better. I just managed to gradually. It was a flip of the switch, but it was a slow flip. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I sat there every year. I could tell I had a significant jump in my wrestling ability, and yeah, just by my senior year, I just figured out how to not lose and break people, and I try to emulate that in my fights as well.
For sure. So you also touched on it earlier that when you lost your first when you lost an amateur fight via armbar, that's when you wanted to start jiu-jitsu. And as someone with sorry.
That was a pro fight.
Pro fight. My mistake. As someone with a wrestling background, when you did first start training jiu-jitsu, what was the hardest concept to learn? Because you would obviously have pre-existing knowledge in how to correctly place your weight from your wrestling background.
The subtleties that being patient in some areas, and not in wrestling. Kind of the way I wrestled, everything was a scramble. In jiu-jitsu, it's kind of a process. It's a step here, it's a step here, it's a step here. Now you're in good position. What branches off from here? What can we do? It was a little more of a cerebral process versus the instantaneous go process that wrestling was. For me to really grasp that, I think I'm loads better now. Obviously, I mean, it's been a few years, but I've really come to grow and appreciate the art and just the mindset behind jiu-jitsu. It's very similar to boxing in my mind, because boxing I picked up pretty quickly. Jiu-jitsu took me a little bit longer, and I think that was stubbornness from wrestling for whatever reason. I'm just as a fighter, that's just kind of what we do sometimes. But over the years, I've allowed myself to settle in. I think learning to flow and kind of being on your back in these little positions, that was really, really hard for me. But I think I've kind of accepted some of that.
Yeah, Vince, your 10 years at the UFC's seen you already take on some pretty solid opposition. You've had Chris Gutierrez and most recently Louis Smolka. Do you think that starting your UFC career off against such solid opposition is going to really significantly benefit you in your tenure at the UFC?
I think so. I'm fighting right off the bat. I was fighting Song Yadong, who was he was like the Chinese prospect, and I was doing that over in Beijing. So that was a little, I was a little starstruck on that one, seeing the big lights and everybody over there. That was a heck of an experience. But I can't trade those for anything, because I think it really has allowed for a solid growth down the path of my own value as an MMA fighter. And I think it's gonna pay dividends, because I'm finally starting to feel like a veteran after looking back and seeing some of the competition that I've already faced and the competition that's still out there. I think I'm still looked at fairly underdogish, so I kind of like that.
Yeah.
So be it.
Everyone loves a dog.
Yeah, exactly. And heart carries me through on some of those things that I believe. But I think I've fought solid competition. It's a bantamweight division, so pretty much everybody's gonna be tough. It's a wild division. I can't wait till I'm up there fighting some of these. I want to fight some of these guys that I've already fought, because I don't like taking an L, and I want to get some of those back. So
yeah, for sure. And speaking on the bantamweight division, your cousin Ricky Simone is on a tear right now with a 4-fight win streak over the likes of Sunsao, Kelleher, Perello, and Borg. How proud of Ricky are you to see his career blossom in this way? And what motivation does it give you to the sort of heights that you know that you can achieve in the UFC and in MMA?
I'm super proud of Ricky. We've grown up. So it's real funny, actually, growing up and then finding out he's becoming a fighter made perfect sense for the way we grew up. He's always had that, whatever that was. I think he's done some amazing things. And every time I've trained with him, I'm like, man, there's nobody like Ricky. Ricky's something different. He's something special. And I think people are starting to recognize that a little bit. So, I mean, I couldn't be happier for him until he gets the belt, and then I got to punch him. But that's all, that's all down the road, another story. Rick, I think we both want to get the better of each other when we're in the gym, and we both really want to have like these dope spots in the when the lights are on us. So I think we've got a little bit of competition between ourselves in a healthy way. But still, we always want the best for each other. And it's a shame that for the first like half of our professional career, we didn't train together too often. Lately, we finally turned that around. We've been able to train together on kind of a consistent basis. And I think it's helped us both like grow exponentially. So I'm super excited for his future, well, because of where he's at right now, and my future following that. So.
Yeah. Well, Vince, something we like to bring attention to is that, can be forgotten in MMA is that, fighters are people too, and that, not just athletes, they're people. So we wanted to ask you, if there is one, the biggest misconception that people have had about you because of your chosen passion and your profession being fighting?
Usually it's only ever when I first meet people that their first impression, because they're meeting a professional fighter. If they're not in that world, they're like, they're a little off put at first, and they're a little like they tiptoe around the conversation until we get to lighten. I feel like for the most part, every time I'm talking to somebody, like we end up lightening up, and we usually have a good flow of communication, and everybody can see that like, oh man, this is just like, he's like one of my friends. He's like another, he's just like us. And I kind of pride myself in that, because that's what I am. That's where I come from, where there's only like 10,000 people. I'm going to be that like kind of that model person. Like, I mean, I set my goals, I go after my goals, and I think everybody can do that. And it's very beneficial for your overall success in life, just having that sort of mindset, not letting the obstacles ever be too big, and just kind of working through those. Just because I'm a regular person that's essentially doing irregular things just because I'm used to working over obstacles.
100%. Well, Vince, look, man, we want to thank you for your time today, man. It's been awesome to talk to you, and I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm really glad you're feeling better, and we can't wait to see you face Nathaniel Wood soon. Really appreciate your time today, man.
Yeah, it's good talking to you guys. Hopefully we get rebooked soon, because I don't like ending that on the sour note. And if anything, now I got a little bit of reason to punch him just a little harder. So I think it's a great matchup. I'm hoping we get rebooked.
Yeah, definitely, man. For sure.
When you get rebooked, man, we'll hopefully talk to you and have a chat after that fight, eh? After you get the
Hell yeah, after a dub, let's do it.
After a dub, let's do it. All right, man. Take care. 100%. Thanks very much.
Bye, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.